I'm going to move on to another posting from Dimo Mariri in South Africa, and he writes, the ICC is a neo-colonial institution that is determined to practice selective justice for the benefit of the West against Africa. The ICC appears obsessed by Africa. African leaders who commit crimes must be prosecuted and sentenced in Africa by a competent African court. And finally, we're going to look at Dennis Ajufo in London, who says, African people should wake up and fight their corrupt leaders themselves, rather than depend on their slave masters to fight for them. How long are African people going to remain subservient? Shaka, it seems like it all boils down to African courts, almost an outcry for the need for the courts to be more competent in order to be able to try their own leaders in the long run.
Very interesting, very interesting. How do you respond to that, Kenneth? African court, competent African courts.
Yes.
In fact, a lot of these leaders have actually been echoing that.
Right.
Why not be tried by African courts? We need to know how those courts are even set up.
Right.
And who decides who should be a judge on those courts.
Right. Interesting question across the African continent, with a few exceptions, of course. Generally, the concept of judicial independence goes closely with the concept of accountability. You cannot be independent without accountability. Now, what we have seen, a lot of commentators focus on independence of judges, but judges also have to be accountable in terms of how they perform.
And they also work in a political context.
In a political context.
Environment.
In a number of countries, the appointing authority for judges is usually the Republican president.
Correct.
The Judicial Service Commission or whatever judicial authority body is there might recommend, but the president makes the appointment.
Correct.
And therefore, most judges tend to feel quite vulnerable and, subject to the whims of the executive.
Or their loyalty really to the appointing authority.
Exactly. It's natural to feel that way if you don't have, security of tenure. So I think there's a good case there to try and strengthen the judiciary. In some countries, for example, we've seen judicial activism. Certain judges have ended up losing their jobs.
Correct.
Which does not really give a good picture.